Yeah, no, I don't have regrets and I don't have guilt. I think guilt is the cruelest thing that we do to ourselves.
You shuffled that guilt off like you shuffled religion and all that pressure off.
Well, I realized it made no sense. It's not everything I experienced on the other side was love, only love, unconditional love. There was absolutely no judgment. There's no agenda and no judgment on the other side for us.
Mm-mm.
All of that we put on ourselves. So why would I put guilt on myself? Why would I encourage anybody else to have guilt? That's a construct of the monkey mind.
Welcome to a stinking awesome episode of the Epic Kate podcast. There were seriously so many wonderful nuggets of wisdom for me to clip out and make into shorts and things because she said so much awesome stuff. It was wonderful to talk to Dianne Sherman and to dive into her wonderful NDE, near death experience. I think it's so wonderful and so fascinating to hear how people experience that glimpse beyond the veil and how they adjust back into regular life after being in this state. People come back with a purpose, with a passion, with a message so often, and also like superpowers, spiritual gifts that are just really, really amazing. And the awakening of Dianne's spiritual gifts following her near-death experience was one of the coolest ones I've ever heard. But I won't ramble anymore. Let's get on to the episode. Hello, Dianne. Thank you so much for coming and being a guest on this podcast.
Thank you for having me, Katie. I'm happy to be here.
Would you like to give a short introduction of yourself?
My name is Dianne Sherman, and I had a near death experience in 1981. And I am a spiritual life coach, intuitive counselor, and a vibrational healer with clients around the world. And speaking the truth that uplifts our hearts and our minds is why I'm here with Katie. To me, it's the most important thing that I can do for the world, for the universe, for myself. It uplifts me as I'm hearing it because spirit's speaking through me. I'm a conscious channel.
Mm,
So
that's beautiful. Um, so I would love to hear your near death experience. To hear that the and what was your religious beliefs before your experience?
well, I had been raised in the Catholic Church. I spent 12 years in Catholic school, and I was fairly pious about my religion. I believed in it. I worked at it. Um, so I would say I was a true Catholic. Yeah.
Mm. Catholic
Yeah.
guilt.
Yeah, of course. And Catholic fear. Yeah.
Mm. It's a
Yeah.
fear of hell, fear of not being good enough.
Well, there's a shaming ritual that they kind of created with Holy Communion and having to go to confession as children.
Oh.
And we're taught that we have this original sin that, that's why we're baptized is to remove that from us. But it's our responsibility to, take care of the sins, our sins, and not put them into the world and all of that. And that there's a lot of judgment on us by the universe, by God. And that if we don't perform appropriately, we're going to go to hell as opposed to going to heaven, which I think is just a crazy thing to introduce children to.
It's abuse.
It is abuse. And I don't know if they're aware of how abusive it is. And I, on some level, I hope they're not, because if they're doing it intentionally, then that makes it even bigger and more terrible. So,
It's like it's not sin if your brain's just not developed enough and it's doing the best that it can.
right,
Oh,
exactly.
so how old were
So
you when you did you nearly die or did you die?
I flatlined in recovery in a hospital. Yeah. So I died.
I
I've
love
never heard
it.
it quite like that. Yeah.
Like I said, I'm a professional. So, how was that? What was that experience like?
Well, let me tell you the story, okay?
Okay.
So, 1981, I went in to have arthroscopic surgery on my left knee. I had had an accident in Mexico, in Acapulco, with my husband. Um, it's swimming in the ocean, and there was a lot of undertow where we were swimming. And I'm from California, Southern California, so I'm used to the ocean. But this undertow, I was exhausted. So I decided I'd had enough. I needed to get out because I was treading water. Now, my ex-husband was um, he had played water polo for years in Italy, where he was from. And so he was pretty adept at handling whatever body of water he was in. So I'm climbing out, and the beach had an incline. And as I'm going up, my foot got knocked by a wave behind me. It hit the back of my knees and it pushed my left foot into the sand. At the same time, it kind of morphed my body around and back into the water. And as that was happening, that foot that was in the sand, I dislocated that knee. And so I am like, in excruciating pain in the water, trying not to drown. And thank God my husband was with me because he kind of scooped me up and got me onto the shore because I couldn't tread water. I was holding on to my knee. It hurt so badly I couldn't let go of it. You know how
Mm.
you grab a body part when it's in pain? And that's what I was doing. So um, that's how the injury got created. And from that, our dear friends who lived in Acapulco took me to their chiropractor who had me on this kind of like day bed, and it had rungs, three rungs at the top. And he motioned me because I didn't understand. We weren't communicating in the same language. I didn't understand what he was asking, except that he said, hold on, which I did. I was kind of laying down and holding on to this above me. He took my foot and ankle and he went, and that did not improve anything. It made it much worse. When I finally got to the States, I had it x rayed. And at that point, I had a blood clot, chip bone fragments. That kneecap was totally in the wrong place, and part of it had sheared off. And I would, torn cartilage and ligaments and all kinds of stuff. So I waited 10 years to have the surgery because I was a professional model at that time and I couldn't handle that big patella surgery that they would have to do to open it up. So 10 years later, arthroscopy's up and running and it's great. And I had it. And that morning, I'm sitting on a gurney out in the hall and I'm shivering. I hadn't had a shot yet. I hadn't had any medication yet. Hadn't had breakfast either, of course, because you have to be empty stomach. And so I'm shaking from cold. And this nurse came up to me and said, "Would you like a heated blanket?" And I said, "I would love that." I didn't know they had them, but I would love that. She brought me a blanket. That helped a lot, calm my body down. And at that point, I was laying down and with the blanket on me, and I was calming down. Went into the surgical suite. They put another blanket on me, and I went out. I went to sleep. It was very weird. I went to sleep before I had the anesthesia.
Wow.
Yeah. I didn't have a line going into my arm or anything at that point. So I slept through all of that. That must have been a precursor to what was coming, I guess. I don't know.
Wow.
So um, they did the surgery. Everything went well, although there was a lot more to repair than they realized. And they were only able, they're doing it arthros- arthroscopically. And so they don't have permission to open up that knee and go in and do everything. So it took them a lot longer to finish fixing what needed to be fixed. And so I was under anesthesia a long time, longer than they had anticipated. And at that point, because I was a working model, I was a lightweight. I was very thin.
Mm.
I was 5'9" and I weighed about 116 pounds. And so I'm in recovery after surgery and I'm starting to become aware and I hear, Dianne, wake up. Dianne, wake up. And I'm looking over and there's some commotion going on in the bed next to me and they're talking to this woman and they're saying to her, Dianne, wake up. And I'm thinking to myself, how funny that we both have the same first name. I kind of went back out, not thinking about it. Next thing I knew, they're saying, Dianne Sherman, wake up. Dianne Sherman, wake up. And I'm thinking, oh my God, they've got the wrong person. Did they do the wrong surgery? What has happened? So I'm waving frantically, trying to get their attention, but they're not paying any attention to me. And I'm thinking, well, they're trying to save this woman. They're trying to resuscitate her. So I'll wait until things calm down, then I'll talk to the nurse and, find out what's gone on. Next thing I know, I am standing at the bottom of her bed, looking up at her, and it's me.
Mm.
And I remember looking down at me and noting that I was standing there. I was there. And then I looked back up at her, saw it was me. I had no connection to her in the bed. I didn't even feel like I knew her. I had no worry or concern or anything about what was happening to her. I was just watching. I've said this a million times, but I have to say it every time. It was as if somebody said, pass the salt. It was that neutral. It was that normal. It was that there's nothing happening.
Wow.
The next thing I knew, I'm now floating up into the corner of the room, overlooking what they're doing. And there are 3 people working on her. And I'm not concerned.
Mm.
And I'm not worried. I'm not concerned. I'm also not even interested. It was like that person had nothing to do with me. So the next thing I know, I am being extricated out of the corner of the room and being pushed into this, I guess it was the tunnel, blackness. And as I say, pushed, I could feel my body arching away from it. So I didn't want to go into it because as a kid, I was terrified of the dark and not being able to see, blindness. And I thought to myself in my very rational mind, well, if I can find a glimmer of light, I'll know I'm safe. I'll know I'm not blind. I'll know I'm okay. So I'm focusing and focusing and focusing, trying to find this little glimmer of light. And in that moment, it starts to grow. And I realize, I'm okay.
Mm.
And it grows and grows and grows from this little tiny glimmer of light that I'm struggling to hold on to the vision of. It just becomes everything around me.
So, is it okay if I pop in to ask a question?
Of course.
As you're disconnected from the you that is on the bed, are you in that instant of I guess it was the death, huh? Was it also the disconnect from that faith where like of normal you would be looking for Mary or Jesus or whatnot? Like, oh, I'm dead. I gotta look out for the signs that I'm sure are gonna be waiting for me on the other side there.
No, I didn't have any sense of religion in that moment.
Okay.
None at all. There was nobody that I was looking towards to save me or help me, or because I didn't feel threatened. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't feel like I wasn't okay. I didn't know where I was, but I felt okay where I was, especially as it I got further into it, then it became, wondrous. So no religion at that moment in time. That didn't come until the awareness later.
Mm.
Um,
So you were in that
so
light,
I'm finally
feeling
in the
safe.
light, and the light for me is kind of like being in clouds.
Oh.
It's diaphanous, but it has, pardon me, all the colors of the rainbow. It's iridescent, and it's alive. It's energy. It's alive. I think that's the first time I've said that about it, but it feels alive. And as I'm moving through it, my body's feeling calmer. I'm feeling good feelings that I'm becoming aware of. And I'm now floating through this beautiful white diaphanous energy. And as I'm floating through, it's parting in front. And there are 2 rows of monks on either side ahead of me in brown robes with the hoods up. And they're facing in like this. And I'm floating. And I remember thinking while I was floating that it was funny to me that I was floating, that I notated, I knew I was floating, and that I looked down and I was like 2 feet off the ground. So I wasn't up in the sky. I was just, floating off the ground. And I float through this 2 rows of monks, and I stop as this monk on the left front steps forward to me. I'm here, and he's coming in this. And he says, "It's not your time. You cannot stay." And I'm starting to feel loved, and I'm starting to feel cherished. And I don't know if it's emanating from the monks, from the place, from the experience, but it's all starting to resonate that I'm feeling cherished for the first time in my life. And it's like I'm coming to a place that I've always wanted to be in, whether it's physically or just emotionally. And in that moment while I'm talking to him, I'm thinking, you can't send me back. I finally found what I've been looking for my whole life. And he said, "It's not your time. You cannot stay. You must go back." And I said, "You cannot send me back when I have found home." I found home. I became home to myself, which I'd never had on earth. I'd been married. I have a child. I had never felt at home in myself until being there with them. And he said, "You cannot stay. You must go back. You have a child." And I did. My daughter was 6 years old at that point, and I was divorced. And I loved her with all my heart. And I would have walked through fire for her. But being where I was, I didn't want to give that up. I didn't know how to give that up. It was so perfect. And there was nothing else to say, is just, it was perfect. How do you walk away from perfection?
Mm.
How do you walk away from all those things you'd always wanted to experience and you're now experiencing them? And they're saying, "But it's not your time. You must go back." So we kind of went back and forth on that for a minute. And as I'm thinking about my daughter, I'm thinking, my ex-husband is my ex-husband for a reason. I did not want him to raise her. I had full custody of her.
Mm.
My parents were both gone. My sister was not mentally healthy enough to raise her. She was 2.5 years older than I was. And because I had traveled a lot with my husband, my people, I hadn't created the relationships and the friendships and whatnot that I needed to be the surrogates for my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And as I'm thinking about who could love her the way I want her to be loved, I'm back in my body. And I woke up in my hospital bed and didn't understand what had happened.
Yeah, was the memory of the whole experience just kind of wiped out just with the reality of all the pain from surgery and everything?
I wasn't in a lot of pain.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, the woman who I shared the room with had similar surgery, not as in depth as mine, and she was in excruciating pain, and I was not, and they had me up walking.
Oh, wow. That's a side
So
effect of nearly dying for some people is a pretty quick
yeah,
healing, huh?
yeah. The doctor said he'd never seen anybody heal as fast as I did.
Wow.
So yeah, I didn't have memory of it per se when I came back into my body. That came back in bits and pieces. The
Mm.
first time I realized something major had happened is when my sister and I went out to dinner about a week later. I'm on crutches and we're at a restaurant that we both know and have enjoyed and all of a sudden I hear this cacophony of sound coming at me and these feelings coming at me of everybody in the restaurant. I could hear their inner dialogue. I could feel their pain. I could feel their fear, their needs and wants. And I thought to myself, oh my God, I'm becoming psychotic. I'm hearing dialogue. And in 1981, who do you go talk to that about? If I
Yeah.
went to the priest, he would have said I was a
Demon
heretic.
possessed.
Right. If I'd gone to the doctor, he probably would have put me on a 72-hour hold.
Mm. How long did
So
that last? That state of just being your what is it in chakra terms? It's like your third eye was just like boom.
it was more than the third eye because it was my hearing as
Oh,
well as my body feeling. I mean, it was just all of me. It wasn't here. It
right.
was here. It was all
Wow.
of my physicality attached to all of my chakra system.
It's like your higher.
Everything.
It's like you were your higher self.
Yeah, yeah. It was like I was taking everything. One person said to me, "You take in everything through the pores of your skin." So I'm very kinesthetic.
Wow. And how long were you in that state?
Long time. I
How
mean,
did you not go
it
crazy?
it wasn't that big all the time.
Mm,
It would ebb and flow, but I stayed out of the public a lot. I had the excuse, that I was healing my knee and whatnot, and I hadn't gone back to work yet. And yeah, it softened, and I worked with people who taught me what had happened to me and showed me how to meditate and do certain things, which I did, which took me out of that. The
mm.
meditation would eliminate all of that. The noise would stop.
That must
Yeah.
have been so overwhelming.
It was overwhelming because I thought, okay, something's happened. This is the new me. Now, what do I do about it? What do I do with this? How do I handle this?
Yeah. It's like, am I meant to give people messages? Am I
Oh,
meant to?
I had no idea about that at that point.
Mm.
No idea. No, I was still dealing with the onslaught of information that I'm not able to process. What am I doing with this information?
I wonder how many people are in that state and don't know what to do with it and just like go crazy from it.
Well, I think it depends on who they are. I have later found out that I am a sensitive and I am an empath.
Mm.
And I have, clairaudience, clairsentient, clairvoyance, the clairs. And it, it makes sense to me that I was on overload because of how I'm wired.
Mm. Wow. Now, I was taking some notes of questions and I was wondering when you got back into your body, or was there a feeling of disconnect from your body on reentry?
No, the feeling was, it was really, you know, that feeling when you kind of shock into your body when you're
Mm-hmm.
asleep? It was that times 100. It was like trying to fit into a tight wetsuit, a rubber suit. It was like, you know, and of course, you don't have any of your own insecurities or negative feelings or worries or any of that when you're on the other side. But when you come back into your body, all of that comes back too.
Oh,
And if you've got any aches and pains, those are right there also. You've been in bliss and now you're not.
I've
You
heard that a lot of people have a really hard time adjusting back to being in their bodies, and I
Well,
was
I
wondering.
had I had surgery which gave me a point of reference for things are different.
Mm,
Because I'd had anesthesia and I'd had, I was 2.5 hours or more on the table. Um, so I had, and that was my reference point. Oh, it's because I had the surgery. The
mm.
surgery. I wasn't thinking anything else.
And I was wondering, like, yeah, you said you've told the story a lot of times, but when you tell it, do you still feel that same, like, visceral homesickness? I can kind of feel the visceral homesickness from you, actually.
Yeah, I do. And I told the universe a long time after that if I was going to be here in human form, I had to have a way to touch back to the divine feeling I had in some small way. I had to have that. Otherwise, I couldn't handle staying.
Hmm.
So meditation gave me that. Sometimes I could meditate and connect up and feel all of that bliss momentarily. And it was humbling, that feeling that I was so loved, as we
Hmm.
all are, um, by the universe, is so humbling to me. It always makes me cry.
Hmm. So you go through all of this, you're hearing everything, and you're also going to church at the same time. Are you hearing the priest's thoughts at church?
I'm not sure. It's interesting. I don't remember going back to church right after having my surgery.
Mm-hmm.
I felt disconnected there. And so much so that the following year my daughter was going to have first Holy Communion, and she was in a Catholic school, a parochial school. And they had told the parents that all parents have to go to inquiry classes while their children are getting ready for their first Holy Communion. And I got so angry and refused to do that.
Were you confused about your anger, or were other people in your family confused about it?
Well, there was only my sister.
Mm,
My parents were gone at that point. So um no, I just had my backup, and it was like, no, you cannot make me go to classes. I'd gone 12 years of Catholic school. I have had enough of the Catholic stuff. So it was more I was just being pissy about it. I didn't want it. Don't try to force me again into something.
I don't fit in that box anymore.
I don't.
Mm.
Yeah.
So what did your attention shift to spiritually as you were sorting out these superpowers and who the new you was?
That's an interesting question. Um, I don't know quite how to answer that. You know, it became sort of a slow, subtle calming down of things. Um, if I met somebody new, if I was introduced to somebody or, ran into somebody on the street or whatever, um, big feelings would arise again, because I'm now feeling them. But the overarching, bigness of all of that, of the world's information coming at me, that stopped. It calmed. And
Mm.
I think part of it was because the universe knew that I was not going to handle that without breaking.
Mm.
Yeah, because there's so much psychological stuff you can do to calm yourself. And luckily, I was led to a lovely woman who did fabulous facials. And while I was on the table, she was explaining different parts of my face to me and what it meant emotionally and what part of the organ system it was connected to and blah, blah, blah.
Hmm.
And I was like, wow, that's interesting. How does she know all that? That kind of thinking. And she was very spiritual. And she led me to someone who taught me how to meditate and work with crystals and do all kinds of things that I had, no concept of before. And that sort of opened me up to more capacity
Mm.
and a sense that I was in control. I could have this in my life and not be done in by it, but I could work with it and partner up with it.
Yeah. Energetic hygiene is a word I've come across.
I like that.
Yeah, it's
Energetic
like
hygiene. Yeah.
building up the boundaries. So like for people who are mediums, they can say like, okay, spirits not now.
Yes.
Saturdays between 3 to 4 are your hours. Like,
Yeah, I have done that because I was having spirits waking me up at night.
oh
This is
wow.
just in the last few months. I mean, I've had it ongoing for years, but the last 6 months it got particularly loud. And you wake up scream. I wake up screaming when
Oh,
somebody's right there
well,
wanting to talk
yeah.
to you, and you're sound asleep. Because in that moment, I don't know that they're in spirit because I can see them. So I worked with a woman who helped me create a tray with different types of crystals and stones and gems and whatnot that sort of, and it's under my bed, keeping everybody out, and I have a piece over the ledge of my door frame and on the other side of the door frame and everything I can do to say, I'm happy to talk to you guys when I'm awake, but not while I'm asleep. So stay the hell out of my room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how was it discovering that there's a purpose for this? I have gifts that I can help people with and I can
Well, it's interesting. I think I've always been the kind of person that people talk to. Even as a young person, I think that was part of who I was. And when this information, it was like a feeling, coming up inside of me that had to be allowed its voice, its energy out. I remember many, many times going to the doctor's office with my daughter. She was doing allergy testing and I was doing it along with her. And we'd be in the elevator going up to the floor of the doctor's office and the elevator doors would open and I would say something to the person next to me or the person behind me. And they would either laugh hysterically or cry, but I could not contain it. It had to be delivered. And I didn't know these people. My body just went, hello. And my daughter would get very embarrassed. It was horrible for her. Mom, why do you have to do that? But I couldn't not do it.
Mm. Now I'm curious, is there something does your daughter also have spiritual gifts and things like that she was such a
I,
part of you going back?
I can't answer for my daughter.
Right.
Um, I just know that she grew up with a mother who would have preferred being on the other side, which wasn't good for her.
Hmm.
She's a psychotherapist and a good one, and she's lovely. But, you know, I can't speak for.
Yeah. But I want to say you did the best that you could. I hope that you don't have any feelings of regret
I
towards
have no
yourself.
regret.
Oh,
I
good.
have no regret. People have asked me, did you send yourself back or did they send you back? And I said, I won't know that answer until I'm on the other side.
Mm.
And however it is that it happened, I'm okay with that.
Mm.
Yeah, no, I don't have regrets and I don't have guilt. I think guilt is the cruelest thing that we do to ourselves.
You shuffled that guilt off, like you shuffled religion and all that pressure off.
Well, I realized it made no sense. It's not everything I experienced on the other side was love, only love, unconditional love. There was absolutely no judgment. There's no agenda and no judgment on the other side for us.
Mm-mm.
All of that we put on ourselves. So why would I put guilt on myself? Why would I encourage anybody else to have guilt? That's a construct of the monkey mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't need it. We need to be loving and patient and gentle and tender with ourselves
Mm-hmm.
because it's not easy learning to love yourself in human form. And that's kind of one of the reasons we're here
To learn how to love ourselves.
in human form. We know on the other side,
Mm,
but in human form, we don't.
it's true. I was, I've been on a journey of figuring out, of realizing I don't love myself as much as I thought I did, and I need to do better at that.
Yeah. Once you have a real connection with yourself, your life changes for the better.
Mm.
And you're never alone.
It's like we're on a journey to be our own best friend, to be what we're longing for.
Exactly. And we're the only ones who can give it to us. You can't get it through a relationship or a child or your work or money. You can't. It only comes from you within.
I had this feeling about homesickness that we are, since we all come from that other side, we're all homesick for that other side. And the longing that we have for a lover or a best friend that really knows us is just that longing to know ourselves that well.
Well, when we love us, we're in connection with the other side
Mm.
because we're recognizing our divine preciousness. We're owning that. And that's a direct conduit. So it's everything.
So when you were giving these messages to people that you just
Mhm.
couldn't help but give them, was that channeling
Yes.
and you didn't know it yet?
No. And years later, I worked with one particular person to help me learn how to physically channel, how to decide, to do it and who to let in and, how to handle it and all that stuff. And that morphed into, I went from that to automatic writing with Mother Mary.
Mm.
And now I'm a conscious channel. I don't go into, an altered state. I'm always on when I need to be. It's right here, right now.
Wow.
Many
Is
times I listen to the podcasts that I've done and I'm kind of taken aback because I didn't know I knew that or said that or.
Is that related to guides? Like, is Mother Mary one of your guides, or?
Well, I think the energy that I work with, the healing energy that I work with is Mother. And that's what I always called her was Mother. And it turns out that it's not just Mother Mary, but it's all the divine deities.
Mm,
Kuan Yin's part of that. And it's bringing that divine feminine energy. I think that's why a lot of people are attracted to me because they feel that energy. And I know most people who I work with cry with me. And it's not because of what I'm saying to them, it's what they're feeling when they're with me.
mm.
Their hearts get touched.
Yeah, a few people in the world got some mommy and daddy issues and could really use some of that soothing. Yeah,
Yep.
talk about universal experiences. Um, so do you feel like that mother energy that you is do you ever feel that when they're like, we want to come through, we want to we got something to say, like when you're recording?
No, it's seamless at this point. It's just a part of
Mm,
me and the energy with me. There's no, hi, I'm here. Can I play with you today? There's none
mm,
of that. It's
mm,
just, it's just the connection is always on.
mm. So it's like, oh, I'm trying to find words. It's so interesting. So there's like your internal dialogue, and that's also a part of your internal dialogue in your head, kind of.
I hear, but it's a knowing in my body
Mm,
at the same time. And I think it's intuitively driven. You know, my intuition is my GPS.
mm. So
I
it's
don't do anything without it. What do I wear? What do I eat? When am I going there? What am I doing here? Who am I working with today? I trust my intuition
and
above all.
and your intuition led you here to this podcast today.
Or yours led you to me.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
Yeah,
combination of the two.
yeah, yeah. Well, it's my desire to let people know that there's nothing to be afraid of, either here or on the other side.
Mm,
We celebrate birth always. Why aren't we celebrating transition? Why aren't we celebrating, letting go of this physicality and going on to bigger, better, more amazing experiences? Why aren't we
yes.
celebrating the hell out of that?
Why is death have such a, oh, we don't talk about that. Oh no, you're gonna get better. It's don't like, it's not an evil thing.
If it were an evil thing, would everybody have it to go through?
Mm,
I mean, from the minute you're born, you know that you're going to die, and nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to support what that means.
mm,
And to me, it's sad because I have I have seen people in transition and how the room changes and how the spirit of the person lifts off, and it's incredible. And the most important thing we need to know is that religion lied to us. There's nothing scary going on over there. It's just love. They have hospital and education for us in case you're not, in good shape within yourself emotionally when you cross over. They're waiting there, to scoop you up and just love on you and just help you to remember who you are in the most divine part of you.
mm,
Most of us don't know that part of ourselves and are kind of remiss in even being able to say, "Oh, I have a divine part." We our ego gets in there and kind of messes with us that, well, you're not good enough. You couldn't have that. You couldn't possibly be precious and divine, you know, because of the perceptions that got created in childhood. We have this mentality about ourselves that's
mm.
negative when it should be just, yeah.
I heard a really interesting thing. I listen to so many podcasts as I'm,
Me too.
folding laundry, doing the mundane things. And I heard one that's, there is no evil. It's like we're putting on a play. So like even the angels are like, I'm gonna be a demon in the next life, and I'm gonna play my part, or I'm gonna play a mass murderer in this life and play my part. And it's like all of it's not real in that sense.
It's true.
Huh.
I learned that my father was a very scary man when I was growing up. He had some lovely parts to him, but the biggest part of him was the scary part. And he was the boogeyman for people old enough to know what that terminology means. And I realized when I was majorly into healing my heart and my experiences and everything that He chose to play that role for me so that I could learn to handle myself no matter what was happening to me. I can be with a client who is in so much pain, who has the most horrific story to share with me, because I've been there, done that.
Mm.
So I can hold the space for them to learn to love themselves, to learn to congratulate themselves for coming through it and not becoming a serial killer and not giving their heart away and keeping their authenticity and integrity. And I'm grateful to my father for playing that role. He agreed to do it.
Do you think it's a matter of like soul contracts and soul families and we
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know I wouldn't be me had I not had him.
mm.
Do I wish that pain and suffering on myself? No. But the lessons that came with it were huge for me in a positive way. So there's always the yin yang, there's always the light and the dark. It's a dance. We all have multiple sides to us. We're all capable of all manner of things. I knew by the time I was 10 years old I could kill my father with my bare hands if I had to. So 10-year-old kids don't need to know that stuff, but I did.
Were you a super sensitive child as well as far as spiritual
Yeah.
things?
Yeah. But it was not okay to be sensitive. I spent a lot of time going out of my body. Now,
Oh,
some people would say, well, maybe that's disassociation. Well, it wasn't emotional per se, it was literally physically. Yeah, I would go into altered states.
wow. Would you like fly around the neighborhood while your body's in your bed?
No, I, flying was my favorite thing. I did not have much of that. I only had a few flying experiences, and they were localized in my house.
Mm.
But yeah, I would give anything to fly again. That, yeah.
I love my flying dreams.
Can you still do them?
I've never
Do
been
you
able
still
to
have them?
I've never been able to control a dream. I've never been done the lucid dreaming or out of body experiences or
Yeah.
anything cool.
Well, if you're having flying dreams, I don't think it gets any cooler than that.
It's true, it's true. But I mean like the lucid, like where you can see you're like, I'm dreaming now, and now I'm going to do this. Like,
Oh no, I can't. I can't do that. I think there's some things we don't want to control. We
yeah,
just want to experience.
yeah. So was there anything missing that you wanted to talk about?
I think the thing I'd like to say is to learn to love yourself because you're the most important person in your world. And for those out there who are sensitives and empaths, it's really the most important thing you can do because you're wired to be of service. And so you're always going to do that. But you need to be loving and honoring you above all things and really getting to know the truth of who you are and checking in with yourself. We all know how to do, am I hungry? Am I thirsty? We know where that lives in the body.
Mm,
What am I feeling emotionally? And what do I need to do for myself? Where does that live within us? How many times a day or a week or a month does someone ask that question about themselves?
mm,
There's an inner child that lives within all of us, and that inner child needs rescuing. It needs us to go back and create a relationship with them. It needs us to reparent them. It needs us to help them understand that what they believe about themselves, that their monkey mind has told them, is not true. The
mm,
perceptions that got created in childhood by how the parents or other adults interacted with them informed them of their goodness or their badness. And it's not true. Children take on the responsibility of inept parenting. They can't say, there's something wrong with my mother or my father's crazy or whatever the story is. They say, it must be me. there's got to be something wrong with me, or they would love me, or they would treat me better, or they'd pay attention to me, or they'd want to spend time with me. These children don't understand that they're with adults who are broken in many cases, who have had, traumatic upbringings, and who don't know how to be a parent. We do driver training, but we don't do parent training. So we need to rescue our inner little kids. And that's a lot of the work that I do with people, is reclaiming their hearts and helping them feel special about themselves, because each and every one of us is. We're all perfect children of God in whom he is well pleased. So why would we think anything different about ourselves, or why would we show up in the world without knowing that, so that we can create the lives we deserve to have, which is joyful and loving. So take the time to learn to love and appreciate your preciousness, because each and every one of us in the world is precious.
Yes. Amen.
Yes.
Sister, preach. That's the kind of church I want to go to.
Yeah, me too. Let me know when we find it.
Let's make it.
I want everybody to find their own church within themselves.
My church is the woods out in front of, and in my backyard. And I had this beautiful moment of faith the other day. I was sitting there and I was thinking about these paradoxes. I am so important. I am insignificant, like in the scheme of the universe, I am insignificant, but I am the universe and I am important. And I'm pondering these paradoxes. And I just had this feeling of, if I open my eyes, I might just catch a glimpse of a little red cap of a gnome. Like
of course.
It just felt real. And I just like, this is such a gift of faith right now in this moment, that I really believe that there are gnomes out there.
There are devic forces out there. I've been with them in England. Yep, they're out there.
I think I'm one of those people that's not going to see cool things. I mean, I'm not putting this limitation on myself, because I know I have gifts, but I think I'm meant to look for the beauty and magic in the mundane, and in listening to my intuition and following I'm meant to reach out to that podcast guest. I'm meant to watch The Princess Diaries this morning. I'm to follow the little signs and the little connections.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I do. Yeah. This is your life, honey. You have to live it the way it feels yummy to you.
Yeah. Aw, my heart feels so full talking to you. Even though nothing particularly was said, I'm just feeling emotional. Oh, this is so beautiful.
Well, you're sensitive. You receive it. You get it. Thank you for that. Thank you for reaching out and connecting us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Woo! So the way that I end my conversations is I give hugs. Hugs. Yes. Thank you so much. And it was a pleasure to connect with you.
Thank you, Katie. I have loved being with you. I hope this furthers you and me.
Yeah. I feel like something was unlocked in my heart.
Good. So will you send me a link
when you're up and about? Yeah. Okay. And I will put all the ways that people can contact you in the description.
Just put my guidingyourspirit.com. That's my website.
Okay.
Be well.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Huge thanks to Dianne for coming on. I originally heard her on the Next Level Soul podcast, and at the end he gives people the opportunity to promote themselves, share where they can be contacted. And I don't always reach out to people, but I for some reason was I want to have her on my podcast too. I want to talk to her myself. And I'm so happy that she reached back out to me and put herself on my calendar. Having said that, I want to say, for anyone that needs to hear this, reach out to people when you get the nudge. You never know what will happen. But don't think, oh, they won't respond, or that video in Next Level Soul got 200,000 plus views. Why would they come onto my show? Like, just try it. You never know. Here is a quick note of something that I wanted to say while I was listening through this and doing my little edit through. At the 50-minute mark, she literally said that she's been out there with gnomes in England and I didn't ask about it. What the heck is the matter with me? Oh, I want to hear everything. I want to hear people's fairy stories. Oh, I am just like mentally punching myself in the face right now. Not really. That's not the vibe of this episode, but I just had to make a note of that I am severely disappointed in myself for not asking further about that magicness. And at the end of my podcasts, I often like to share about what I'm doing. I like to share about my other projects that I have. And usually I turn off the camera and I hit stop record and I just talk about this stuff one-on-one. But often people keep saying really beautiful, amazing things, and I'm like, I wish I was still recording. So I let the camera, I let it keep going with her permission, and I thought, hey, why not just share this part here? I don't have to say it twice. So here's that. So I wanted to just share briefly about the things that I do, and maybe the universe might bring to mind somebody that I can help through that.
Okay.
I have another podcast called Clearing the Creative, and it is a passion project. It brings me so much joy, and it's helping people with their creative block, especially relating to vlogging on YouTube or podcasting, because I have a lot of experience with those things. And I'm also a professional editor. And so I love to pull out people's personality and make their videos sparkle and make it reflect them and help them connect with their people. So the Clearing the Creative podcast, we like attack a block. And I give, we talk inner stuff, inner blocks, but I also give practical support, something they can do right now to get movement.
Cool.
Yeah. And I have a website, clearingthecreative.com. And it's been some beautiful aha moments with people. Like my friend Katana, we had a session and she like immediately wrote her children's book. Like it was broken. It was clear. She was like, I know exactly what to do.
Wow.
So proud of her.
I've been sitting on a book for years.
Ooh. Let's talk about your block next time. Because no matter how enlightened a person is, you can't see the label of the jar from inside of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Something to think about.
Yeah. And the thing that I'd really love to do through this is to become a cheerleader, coach, friend, person, that it's not just the one session. It's like, okay, I really feel like we vibe, we click, we could be a bi-weekly or monthly thing where I check in on you, I give you ideas, and like we make these videos better and better and build your confidence more and more.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's good to know you're doing that.
It's a dream. It's a dream, and it's going to be a reality, man.
It's not going to be a reality. It is a reality. It's just not in this time space yet.
Yeah.
It's already created. It just hasn't arrived here yet.
Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. So yeah, that's my thing. I also have a vlog on YouTube, and it's fun, and it's sharing the beautiful memories, and I shared a cool poem with scenes of a beautiful beach that I was walking my friend's dog at.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
so that's a special thing. It's Epic Kate is the name of the vlog. So, yeah, if you would like to reach out to her and check out her website, that will be found in the description. And the last thing that I'd like to say is, if this was valuable to you, please do the YouTube things. The liking, the subscribing, the sharing, the commenting, the fun things that you know help to push this video where it's meant to go, to help it to travel across the expanses of the tubes of the internets of the world. I'm so word good. And the very, very last thing that I would like to say is, if you'd like to support this channel financially to help it to continue to exist, I have a PayPal link in the description, and that is there if you feel so led. All right. Thank you. This has been the Epic Kate podcast. Look out for the next awesome episode.